Okay, had some lags. Let's hope it's working now. Hello, everybody. Can you just tell me if you copy me right, if you hear me, and if you see this, the presentation on it? Just if you can say yes or no in the question box, that would be lovely. I'll just wait maybe 1 or 2 minutes extra. So that you know it, I'm doing this from my place because we didn't want it to make it on another moment. So I will just ping my colleagues over there to know sure that you hear me right. She told me all good. So that's Vero, you know Vero, our marketing manager. She's always there in the backside, you know, backstage people. I cannot do anything without them, of course. So yeah, I wait for 1 more minute. I see that we have about, 30 people coming in. Hello, everybody. Hello, Nella, Nancy. Again, all those ladies on it. I love it. Cool. Okay, let's go for the show then, or the presentation at least. So I hide myself, I go over there. Okay, watch and learn, back to school edition, and let's go for second session. The session will be really about slicing the email, cutting it in little pieces everywhere possible. And the idea is really that you understand everything, which is very important when you think about email marketing. So in the first session, we were more talking about the business impact and how it could deliver more value for your business with some figures, some practices. This session will be really about the message himself. And the third one, as soon as we have 1 and 2, the third will be to be sure that your email gets into those mailboxes. So really quickly about myself, if you didn't hear the first one, my name is Jonathan, nearly a decade in marketing automation. I'm working for Actito, and Actito is a marketing automation platform. But more important, my job is to help marketeers. Sorry for my fellows ITs over there, but I really focus on marketeers, and I try to help them identify business opportunities on a customer journey by mixing from one side technology and on the other side, of course, the expert services we can offer. It's really about empowering those journeys. You have my Twitter handle, LinkedIn, email. Just shoot as well around the topic. If you have questions, you want us to dig out and some more stuff, just feel free, let us know. So that was the first step. Quickly about Actito, Belgian company, very important to keep that in mind in the age of the GDPR and everything around customer data, of course. So more than 17 years experience. We have a presence today in 4 countries already, Belgium, France, Netherlands, Canada, and we don't stop growing in all the other countries. We are nearly with 100 people today, which is quite impressive knowing I was employee 26, 250 clients, sending us a lot of feedbacks, a lot of demands, and they help us craft the technology we provide to them on a daily basis. So keep doing that. That's your prospect or customer. This is really how we work together. And the idea is really the next one is to help those marketeers, you know, and helping those marketeers acquiring the right technology with the right servicing level. Because at the end, I am a strong believer that you cannot do anything without technology, but that you still need those human touch. Although technology can do a lot, the human aspect is really something very important for me and for the company, because we will try to focus on you because you're our customer, but we will try to help you focus on your own customers. So I'm always saying that to my team. The idea is focus on the client of your client, because that's the best way to deliver those great journey through software from abroad and expert services. That said, let's go on and move on into the anatomy of the email. So mainly we have 3 big types of email today in the market. You have everything around mass marketing or email marketing, very well known for probably something like more than a decade now. And most of us have used in the past something like a MailChimp, building a list, shooting on everybody. That's really the marketing emails or the mass campaign. We have transactional emails, which will be very important. And with the age of e-commerce today, even more important than a couple of years ago. We will highlight those as well. And of course, everything around behavioral email, which is my real turf, of course, for this subject. So if we jump into mass email, the most common examples that I have around it are newsletter, flash sales, big sales announcement. Yeah, it's really about what you get in your mailbox physically is what we could send out of email. They have no real clue about who you are, what you're looking for, but not all the business need to go very, personalized and with specific content piece. Take, for example, the media. I want to know what happened in Belgium, the north, the center, and the south. For those that understand the complexity of Belgium, I'm quite happy to have my daily news about what happened in my country. I don't want to go specific. I want to have a global understanding about what's happening. That is really what we could call a newsletter. Media are a good example of that. But of course, you can think also at other kind of mass campaigns. This morning I wake up, most of the time I'm checking my mailbox, like a lot of us do, I think. And you get that crazy flash sales from Amazon, which you will get probably 1 to 2 times a week. This is really not targeted message again. They have a high volume of a product and they will try to sell it as fast as possible to the biggest amount of people they have in their database. So that is really where they will try to focus on, is getting those quick sales in. That's, for example, second example of mass campaign. So those objectives, what you try to do with that, I think email is for sure one of the most important channel to generate traffic on your website. Your website got a lot of other technology, much more to offer than a single email, but you need to bring the traffic over there. The folder in your mailbox, the email in your mailbox, the ID bring people to store. We could talk about the omni-channel and that aspect and effect, but also so it's going to the digital world as well. So web visit would be the first one. Generate sales, I think I took the right example with our friends from Amazon, of course. Instant interaction, testing stuff. That is great with mass campaign because you got volume. For the statistician out there, you need those volume to understand the behaviors behind it, and you need a bit of mass. And of course, what I love about mass mailing is although a lot of our early stage customer come from the mass campaign world, we use that to identify segments so that we can start step by step to go in a much more one-to-one approach of the email marketing. So you already building a subset of data out of mass campaign, allowing you to do some behavioral email in a couple of minutes. So that was it for the mass campaigns. If I go to the transactional emails, I think we are probably 99% of us over here in this webinar that have done some kind of purchases online. So the example that you see down on my slide is the classic purchase confirmation that you get out of Amazon. Classic stuff, everybody knows about it. Then you got some other more inspirational example on the right, which I think is very important with transactional email, is the first thing it's doing to your database or to your customer is to reassure them. You know, when you're spending 10 bucks, it's quite okay. But if you have a look already at the Amazon one, I think I'd had to spend something like nearly 70 bucks for some kind of shampoo for my wife. I think this is a nuts price for a shampoo, but whatever. Just the fact that I purchase with my credit card, I need to have that confirmation. It's the cash ticket you get when you go in a physical store. You need that email nearly instantly in your mailbox. Imagine purchasing plane tickets, for example. So first goal of the transactional, reassure your client with a lot of information. Of course, let's be honest, next to the assurance, there's the information part, track your product you purchase. You get a lot of extra information around it, but most of the time what you will try to do is a cross and an upsell action in those transactional emails. Amazon does it by showing you extra products people like you purchase. You have the same things in every kind of e-commerce. So a cross-selling, upselling action is a great way. It's also a good way to get those consent for those that are really GDPR related. You could think about some tactics around that, and I would be happy to share more with you on that too. My favorite one, behavioral email or reflex or trigger based, or I don't know which other kind of buzzword I should use around it. What I've done over here, if you take central of my image, you have really what we call the journey builder in Actito. A lot of other tools can offer probably some kind of thing similar to that, but we will try to push it a bit farther. On the left side of my screens, you see what I call tactics. And tactics is exactly what marketers today need to build and to provide to their customer. We talk about behavior, but for as far as I know, there is no magic technology today that can understand, analyze, and act on every single behavior. So it is still a human, and yes, thank you, we are still human and we are marketeer. So you need to think your marketing tactics, and that's really what you see on that left side. Those little blocks will allow you to go for if your strategy is to go for a second purchase, or if your strategy is to go for a welcome program, or you want to integrate with NPS. Those are really every pieces of content and trigger an opening, a non-opening, an action, a next action. This is really what you marketer are building. Those are the tactics, and you will use a lot of A/B testing to that. To be able to do those tactics, you need, of course, those data. And if you take the right side, we wrote a nice piece of content about the fact that flat data model doesn't allow you really to do that. We talk a lot about relation model, but the non-technical over here are people that don't really get it. If you take an Excel sheet, I can have Jonathan lives over there, and that's it. But if I want to go a bit further, you want to know about my family composition. You want to know that my son is called Nolan, that my wife is Virginie, that I have a pet, that I purchased the first time a product XYZ at your store at that level, at that specific moment. Those are all the gray dots you see. And basically, when you have the data from one side and on the other side, you will use the tactics, making those together allow you to work on behavioral marketing, on those reflex, and to test a lot of things out. So, little wrap up, mass campaigns is what we are used to do for probably 15 years now. Transactional emails, we are very used to it, and there is some specific tactics to get those emails very fast into the mailbox because it's important for the customer to have that reassurance. And then the behavioral email and reflex, we will really work on what we call the customer journey from the attract, grow, engage, cross-selling, nurturing, and of course retention phase. That's really the goals of it. So if we dive a bit deeper in the anatomy, you see that we have a lot of different type of email that I took out of my big box. So first of all, let's be honest, the sender, and during the little quiz we did in session 1, my question wasn't very clear about visual sender and technical sender. So I said it's a good moment to re-highlight that one. If you take the example, you have on the first line Actito, and then you have some French subject over there, the bold part of it. The visual is really Actito. And Actito is not an email address. It's really a display name. It's what you put on top of your on your house, on a store. It's the name of your store, if you want. It's not the physical address of that person. The technical sender is the physical address behind that store. So you see, for us, for example, it could be news@actito.com, promo@actito.com. Those are really the technical names. That is what you could basically add to an address book to whitelist those emails as well. With the visual, it's something much more creative, and that's where you, marketeer, can challenge yourself. Should we say that as of tomorrow, could be maybe a good trick to test, Jonathan Actito instead of only Actito? But it's not for that it would be my email address behind it, because you cannot whitelist my email address. You need to whitelist an email which is understood by the different ESPs on the market. So thinking of that, of course, and that's a little tip, watch out. If you personalize your visual sender, you also need to have a routine back to that person so that he can interact with the people. If you open a dialogue with somebody, it's the less you can do is interact with that person in a polite way by answering their emails. So don't go for the no reply at something. I think it's really awful to do those things in the age where we try to convince our clients that we are there for them and that we won't. It's not only convincing, we need to act around it. Of course, you can do a lot of A/B testing. Just to give you an idea, Actito versus Jonathan could be one, Actito Jonathan versus only Jonathan, and you see all the different axes you could test out, but we will have an highlight on A/B testing in a couple of minutes. Maybe some figures that can be linked to the subject, because we got our sender, then we got our subject. And you see that the subject in the example I have are those bold parts of it, of course. Yeah, my mouse doesn't work, but whatever. So the bold part, which is important, is that 35% of the openings are based on the subject line alone. It's basically like the first words you would say to somebody have the most impact on them and allow you to continue the conversation or to close the conversation. I think even more important is that 69% of the people, just by reading your email, will click at that spam. So that's already a pity for them, because they won't be able to be in contact with your content. And I can understand that if you try to sell me blue pills, for example, I would do that directly by clicking spam. But if you were just not persuasive enough, explaining enough in your subject, you would also miss that opening which you're really looking at. And that's a missed opportunity. That's really what I want to mean by that. The subject is really, again, next to the sender, your best option to get that opening, which is really what you marketers are looking for. So maybe bear in mind a couple of tricks. 40 character, it's not much. You can push it to 50. Most of them goes to 50 now, but mobile shrink a lot your subject line versus a desktop, like in this example. A lot of customers are still telling me, yeah, you know, putting the first name in the title doesn't work. I would do the A/B testing by not doing it if you were doing it. And for so far, the tests I've done or run with my clients, we really noticed that you're losing those openings you had before. Now I think we can go a bit further than just the "Hi Jonathan, I got something for you." If you go for a strategy on second purchase, maybe that you can use the first product I purchased. When you purchase your flight for Bangkok, for example, that could really re-trigger me to open that email and to understand what extra value can you offer me. Also try to have subjects that are very persuasive with the what's in there for your customer. Don't try to trick it. Better not getting an opening, and that the next time you're sending something, it's very relevant for them, and getting that opening that's really aiming for an opening, and at the end a deception, and a deception will be probably translated into an unsubscribe. So we got the sender right, we got our subject right, pre-header. It was really lovely during that quiz that more than 80% of you knew what was a pre-header, which was not the case a couple of years ago. And a lot of people are still not using it. And I think it's one of the most useful stuff we have in email marketing today. Why? In the example you see over there, we have a sender and a subject in the bold letter, and then we've got, for example, Xamarin providing some extra data. It's not maybe the best example on the desktop one, but see the second row with digital first, they even don't use it. So basically you leave space where you could have used it to push yourself up front to get an extra value for your customer, which you didn't do. Missing a second option, it's not a lot of channels for so far I know where you get 2 times an option to get an opening or to get an interaction. Email offer you that. And if you have a look at the Olivier from Dogobox, the pre-header is 2 lines where the subject is a single line. So by being creative, maybe that you can find ways to have 3 lines to get that lovely interaction you're looking for. Just keep that in mind. It's really useful to work around pre-headers. Images, because I see that time really flies away. Images, very important. I'm somebody that loves Instagram. My wife spent a lot of time on Pinterest, for example, and all those really visual tools, and swipe with the mobile really change a bit the way we consume content today. So to keep in mind that the image in an email is the first thing that allows us to know that there is an opening next to a click, of course, that's the technical part. But the images have also 3 ways to be hosted somewhere. You can basically host them on your own server, on your company, for example, which could be a good way of doing. What you would do each time you will build an email, you will right-click on that image, have the path to that image, and put it into your template. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it will be to upload it in the solution you're using. For example, Actito as a solution offers you the option to load your image into Actito, or you can use a third party like Binder or other asset management. Now, there is some advantages and disadvantages from each one of them, of course. I think the worst one is your own server. Most of the time, I don't think that your IT will allow you that. That's the first thing, because they didn't build the server to be able to do that. If you have a database of about 50,000 people and then 15% of those opening the email, those are so many people asking the image on your server that your server will probably crash. So that wouldn't be a good option. The option to load it with Actito, we have the infrastructure ready for that. We can really offer high velocity broadband, allowing you to load very fast the image in every ESP on every kind of mobile channel, mobile channel, that was what I meant. So that would be, I think, a fair, good option. And then, of course, for bigger customers that can afford them asset management system, the advantage of an asset management system, he has the broadband, but you could change that image at a certain time. So for some kind of business, that could be useful. Now, 3 options up to you. I would disgrace for sure the server one. Check it what your service you're using, or if you have really a fat asset management system allowing you to do that. 3 golden rules also about image. Alt was a question, so Alt stands for alternative text. So most of the time, that's a bit the blue one that you see in my image. It's a description of the image. It's also what people that have some issues by seeing well the images, that will be the description of the image. A blue sky with 2 glasses of champagne, for example, would be what you would wrote in an Alt. I challenge that a bit further in e-commerce by using personalization. I could say, for example, my wife was called Virginie, and I say, Virginie, isn't that the skirt you were looking at? And just by putting that text and knowing that she is screening an Outlook and not displaying the image, it will generate that click because she's not curious about the image behind it, of course. And then, like in the example you see, to give some punch to your email without image, try to use background colors. They give a bit a visual effect. I use just red in that. I could play with much more colors and be much more creative around it. And then for those that would ask, GIF is still something coming back more and more because it's very light, and it gives some kind of interaction in the email, interactivity in the email. It's like a little video in a way, you know, those are pictures that you could scroll like that and make it animated. So my tip to you is have always your call to action on the first and the last frame. Make sure that the weight of it is really optimized for email as much as you can, and don't go for more than 3 loops because otherwise people are getting really nuts with those GIFs. Call to action, always 3 questions to ask. Yeah, I know Toyota would have said 5. In this case, it will only be 3. So the what, the why, and the how. It looks obvious, but most of the time we will use always the same kind of things. Read this, click there. We can start being more creative. What is the added value for the people by clicking there? What are you expecting from them? Why are you expecting? How are you expecting that from them? You know, so the what, why, how is really a good way to think about challenging your own ways to have call to actions. Also, for those that are maybe like me in the 30s, I still purchase some newspaper with my parents, and when we went to the store, you know, the newspaper will fold in 2, and a lot of the information had to be placed above the fold, or the Johnson box is another word I learned a couple of weeks ago. And basically all that information, if you go into the store, the important information need to be there because that was the attraction. That was how you can get that purchase. So you can think at the same way with your call to action. Try to place some of your call to action quite above in your email so that it generates the little something into your customer, wanting him to go a bit further. Also, try to repeat your call to action in different ways. A lot of the clients use image, which is great. First of all, make them clickable, which is very important, which not everybody is doing. Then use a call to action like a button, coded in with some lovely background color, for example, and have also a link into your article. That's 3 ways to get that click that will lend to the same element in your website, and that's 3 times more chance to get maybe a purchase or an interaction with your customer. So keep that in mind as well. Content. I didn't went very deep in content because I do believe that brands are the most aware people about which type of content they should offer to their customer, because you know your customer, we don't know them all, we can be your customer and then challenge it. But what I mean by that, customer is really the identity of the brand that goes in it. And for me, it stays the king of the kings. Wrong content, lovely email doesn't work. Great content, ugly emails doesn't work. You see, but it's king and queen. To make it happen, you need both of them. So generical tips, would be: don't write too long emails. Use image only on the image in your newsletter, but watch out with how much image you will use versus your text. A 60-40 rule would be nice, for example. Be very clear and consistent. People don't read much, they skim emails, Z reading and just catching some words. An extra tip, which is not in the presentation, put some more in bold. That worked very well, to catch the attraction, the eye-catching of the people. Really works very, very well. So that was really top of mind about content, of course. Mobile, watch out. I'm just back from the US. In the US, they have on average more than 60% reading on emails on mobile devices. And yeah, you go to a conference, if the conference is not right, what do you see everybody doing? Catching out their mobile phones and swiping into the different emails, because it still works. They're still at work during even a conference. So mobile is for sure something you should not underestimate. I also look at how we consume emails at my place. Saturday morning, it's a sweet spot for a lot of our marketeers on there. Me and my wife love to enjoy a little croissant and a coffee in the garden, in the morning. And although we're discussing, we got that little screen on our hand. And how crazy it sounds, we read emails. So think about really that effect that the mobile and it's a pocket away, like I'm always saying. It's, that far. So 5 tips. If you build design, think really mobile first, because it's more easy to go from small to big if you think mobile desktop, for example. Pay also attention to the font. I think you need to increase a bit the size of your font on a mobile. 16, 18 pixels is probably something good. One column works because we have that scroll habit on it. Also, images, watch out, good, but not too much, of course. Thumb size, because a thumb is, for example, 18 pixel on 80 pixel. That means if you make a button like on a desktop, it's way too small versus a mobile. So increase really that one. So responsive design is something that can help you on that. And yeah, we got a lot of tips and tricks around that too. A/B testing, it's for me a weapon of the modern marketeers. Before, when you tried to do A/B testing, it was very expensive, very complex, with the print and all the other channels. Digital channels allow us to test quite fast and a lot of things. Before we're jumping into that, just between brackets, for example, I know that some of our clients are using email A/B testing to define which best design for outdoor campaign after, and they will base it on analytics they have, which is quite new for a lot of us still today. So A/B testing is really about challenging a version versus another version, getting the learnings, and then you go to CD testing and then EF testing. That's really the bubble you're going in. When I start with a new client, I have always 3 must A/B test stuff we do. It's the sender, like we talk about, the subject, of course, and the pre-header. You can run several tests around those 3, but which is good with those 3, at a certain level, you will find out what works. Do I need to personalize the sender with, for example, the shop owner of my nearest retailer, food retailer for him? Yes or no? You will learn it after 2-3 tests. That goes very fast. The subject, same stuff. Do we use personalization? Do we go for catchy or more lean titles? The tone of voice, which is harder to find out, but you can find it out. And the pre-header, I think I discussed a lot about it in the beginning. So those are the 3 must-have testings. Then you can go in some more complex stuff, like the pure content of your emails, the call to actions. Blue versus red is quite easy, but try blue-red with the text in it, with just 2 variables in it, but just try to see if I switch the text of the blue in the red button, do I still have the same impact or not? Also, keep in mind, don't test more than 2 variables at the same time, otherwise you will get nuts to understand what works, of course. Images can be tested a lot, like Does it really work when I'm providing to Virginie, which is the mother of a son of 8, a picture with kids playing in a garden? Or should I better use herself, a lady of 36 years old, which is very active? You know, those are kind of things you can test as well. Think about it. And for example, I can say, and that's a bit some ideas, very question of affirmative could be something, but also when you start playing with values. Do I say $1,000 in figure on letter, for example? Test it out. Could I have some quite crazy learnings about that? So A/B testing, it's really a weapon. You need to use it, but like every weapon or tactics, you need to keep the learnings about it. So I will say Word, Excel, OneNote, Evernote, I don't know where, but as soon as you run a test, try to type in a couple of words what you were testing and what is the learning you got out of it. So at a certain level, you will have a bubble rolling with a lot of tests that you will have done, and you will really see the increase you can do in opening and clicks, in of course purchases or in interaction. So really keep track of those learnings. Also retest them sometimes, because there are a lot of things that can change. Habits, political environment, whatever. There are a lot of things you are even not thinking about that could affect your A/B testing. That's my idea. So sometimes retesting the basics is a good thing. So if you're already since a long time in email marketing, try to restart some easy testing stuff, you know, sender, subject, pre-header, and seeing if that still fits with what you had learned at that moment of time. And also you can A/B test some other kind of things like day in the week. I know that a lot of marketeers use Tuesdays and Thursdays because, I don't know, that's quite the must be moment. But if everybody stand at the same moment, what make you different from the other ones, you know? For example, I still don't understand why retailers don't use more weekends. Saturday would be a great moment. That's on the morning when I have my coffee, I also preparing the purchase because I need to go to the food retailer, for example. Sports shoes, it would be a right moment to go on a Saturday, or if the store is open on a Sunday, but they will go for the Sunday on a mass campaign instead of testing other moments. So time, days, of course, great. Different targetings. I was talking about mass marketing. Try to test on specific segment. You know, really going niche into some stuff can be very helpful as well on that. So keep that also in mind. And if you're a Belgian guy like me, think about the languages, a lot of learnings around that. Technical links, you're all experts, or at least to be experts to become. So unsubscribe link, I mostly push them into the header of my emails. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but I'm always starting from the point, if the people don't get value out of my content, I prefer them to unsubscribe and click on the spam button. That would be my call on that. Web version, although templating and technologies like Actito and other email service provider provide you better and better templates, always having a bit that backup version of a web version, you know, if it doesn't display right, click here. It's always useful because web browser can guarantee a better rendering if the different email service provider just fail by providing the right rendering. So I think it's still useful. Doesn't take a lot of you know, texts or place into your emails. Variables also, if you go with personalization, be sure that you have tested those and that you see all the rendering, not just having the hashtag first name hashtag or dollar first name, but that you really run some tests to see that this data is really compliant and doing well their job into the content. That was my little checklist. Check that your target is opt-in. That's something I will just jump into 1 minute about the legal aspect, but test your personalization, that the image is loading. That was the server stuff, you remember. That your text is right with A/B testing, for example. Test your different versions, of course. Rendering tests email service provider. Litmus, great tool to do that, integrated with Actito as well. That your alt are filled in, that all your links are functional. I still remember a couple of weeks ago, a great promotion getting out and the guy forgot to put the link to the e-store, to the e-shop. So yeah, a campaign opened at more than 40% and gets 70% click. And everybody that clicked on it landed on a 404, which means that the page doesn't exist. that is what I call a fail. It's a pity because you can avoid that by just having a little checklist ready for that. Legal, very fast, because we talked a lot about that with the GDPR. So first of all, in Belgium, it was already normal to have that agreement to send promotional messages to consumers. You really had to show that Jonathan provided his email address to you, for example. And that is in 2003, and for me, it has always been that way. Now there are two exceptions. One is for the people that purchase something from you, then you may have a first interaction, and I insist on a first interaction. If you want more about that, we can dig in, of course. And then the second one is all those generic email address, info at, invoice at. Although the opening rate is really low, that you will probably end in a spam folder, it's fair to say that you don't need an opt-in to send an email on those guys. I don't know exactly how leverageable those emails are, but if you have some insights, would be happy that you can share them with me. And then if you need to go a bit more, next to the opt-in, we have that famous consents in GDPR. We have two blog pieces on our website. Just have a look at them. I think it can be very useful so for some of you to do a quick refresh on that. Now, maybe just a quick highlight about what will happen in that third session. That third session will really be about deliverability, and I would tease it through using the word spam. So spam or unsolicited messages, even maybe worse, people that steal your email address and try to sell you stuff. So what you should keep in mind with spam, it's easier for people to click on the spam button than open your email. Because just by reading it, they tick the box spam, done, game is over. And it's over for you with that specific consumer, but it's probably over for you and a huge amount of your database. So spam is really not to underestimate the impact it can have on your business. So that's really on the user side. Next to that, take Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail.com. All those email service providers offer great email addresses with huge capacities, but the capacity has a cost. You know, I think that Gmail's offer you 10 gig now or something like that. But if I send a daily email which is 100K and that my consumer or that my readers never open it, the guys that have an email address, I'm taking more and more space. So what they have built is algorithm. If they see that Jonathan never interacts with an email coming from brand X, they will push it into spam, and that will also impact the globality of the emails behind it. So yeah, that was an extra idea. And then we will have a discussion about what we could consider as a technical deliverable. So that means that on the technical side, the email is in, and what could be considered as a business deliverability. But again, that's for session 3. That's more, that was a little teaser for that third session that you had over here. I see that I am a bit over time, so thank you. I hope you like it. If not, send me an email. Crush it, push it, tell me where I was wrong, tell me if it's about the content, if it's about me, about my English, I don't care. I want that feedback. Shoot, shoot, shoot. I have also a Twitter handle and LinkedIn. I don't see any questions for the moment coming in, so 2 ways: or everybody fell asleep, or my content was right, or I'm expecting something else. What I mean by that, I will still stay here for a couple of minutes, so if the questions pops up, I will answer them directly. Otherwise, what I do, I grab all the questions that you provide me by email, and please do so. Send me questions. I love to answer, to be challenged, and so that I can challenge nearly 100 people at Actito and provide you even more value, because this is really about bringing you the value out of 17 years experience into the business, and for me, nearly a decade. So thanks a lot. Hear you later. Shoot me some questions. Otherwise, I will answer them and provide them with the replay. Looking forward to see you again. Bye-bye.